Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed with Suzanne and Kim.
Hey everybody.
Look at you, Miss
Not in my
America
normal spot.
today.
I know I'm probably just
You
like
look
getting
like
off with
4th
the
of
flag.
July.
I grabbed a hat because my hair is a train wreck today. So sorry.
I know. I love when we laugh about that in that when men do podcasts, they don't, nobody puts anything on. Not that I'm a huge makeup person anymore, but, slap on a hat, have a t-shirt on, and we're like, I better get some earrings and a little bit of lip stuff, and then it makes me giggle. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going with the hat. You look great. Okay. This one, Kim, is I didn't tell you one thing on this because this is just the most bizarre thing. I love my life being an energy practitioner. I come across the most crazy things. I'm wearing my glasses today because Kim and I were saying, by the way, it is, what is it? The 15th
Yeah.
of July. Eyeballs going crazy lately. Can't see a damn thing.
Yeah. All weekend. I was really
Right?
struggling with I can't I really and things seem weird outside of my like everything's kind of slow motion in places and
It feels
weirdness in
blurry.
there. And I'm like, what is
Yeah.
happening? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have serious notes on this one because it was so crazy. So I had to put my specs on to even see it. But this is a gal who is a super cool woman. She is a therapist. I have worked on her and her husband in the past, and for quite a few years I've known her. And she and her lovely husband are they're an adorable Hallmark couple. They actually like each other, which is amazing. But she is from the UK. She's from London, England, I think, or somewhere like
Oh,
that. She's
okay.
from the UK anyway, and she's got the cutest accent like this. And moved here ages ago, but didn't like what was going on here. And they decided, probably, I don't even know how many years ago, maybe around post-COVID or pre-COVID, to get the heck out of Dodge, and they went to Canada.
Mm.
So they ended up in British Columbia in the most beautiful, I think it's called Penda Island area. So they're these islands off of the coast. And they literally live on this darling island that, they have to take a ferry to go back and forth, which cracks me up. And they've loved it. And I live vicariously through her life on Facebook periodically because it's like got the most beautiful views. And, it's really paradise out there. No kids. They got their fur baby parents, and they've got this gorgeous, gorgeous house that overlooks just nature all day long, right? Well, she called me, and oftentimes when she does a lot of Akashic work and things like that too with her clients. And when she sometimes does this work, she can get ungrounded, and I've put her back in her body several times, including her office. She can get really swirly.
Great.
And she was thinking, "Oh my goodness, I'm getting so swirly." And then she just realized it wasn't just her office, it was her home, it was the whole thing, it was the land, and it was getting worse and worse. And so she finally called me and reached out. And when I tapped in, we did a remote session, obviously. They probably should have flown me in to do it in person.
They should.
Jeez Louise.
Yes.
Um, just kidding. But it was immediate at how much high electric frequencies there were. It was like kind of feeling in this beautiful home. And I don't think this island has tons and tons of people on it, but they have a neighbor that I don't know if I think it's a fairly new neighbor, possibly. I'm not even sure. But they're doing construction. And I think what happens oftentimes is highly sensitive people like my client feel all of that construction, and they're doing a lot of rock work. They're building onto the home. They put a patio out, gung, 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 doing the rocks and the whole thing, and lots of jackhammering and just really messing with the land. So what happens when we have a situation like this is because she's highly sensitive and empathic, she just sponges that all in. And we don't want that to be happening because she already does a lot of trauma in her work. And, that's just like killing her, right? So she's been working elsewhere in her home because the office was so off. But it was way more than just the office, it was everything. So, um, they were taking down tree after tree also. And this particular gal and her husband both are very druid. So what that means is the druids came from the UK, obviously, originally, and she holds that tree element and druid element really heavily in her body. So when they're hacking down trees, her heart is breaking. It's just heartbreaking, heartbreaking, heartbreaking every day, every day. Not to mention she's pissed because now I can see your land. I mean, that's half the reason why you moved to those places, right?
Yeah.
It's kind
privacy.
of how I
Yeah.
felt up at the cabin when we got a neighbor and all of a sudden I could see everything. And I'm like, no, this just isn't acceptable.
Yeah.
But so anyway, yeah, it was tough. So I get into the work. First, she took me on a Zoom tour through the whole entire home. And it's really fun for me because I can read the room and I'm like, oh no, this one's totally off. And I don't know the context of where it's sitting with things outside of it, right? But I'm like, okay, this is really stable and it's pulling to like there's rocks out there, right? And then she shows, yeah, there's rocks or whatever. So that's always fun and validating. But I kept going to this space, and the ick neighbor is right here adjacent too, but this other space was even pulling harder in a really imbalanced energy. So it's technically the driveway. And so the driveway, I kept, even when we were upstairs or on a different floor, I'm like, again, I'm pointing right there by the blah blah. Is that outside of there? Is that the driveway? And every time it was the driveway, it was the driveway. It was so
Well, wait,
interesting.
is it their driveway or is it the neighbor's
Yes.
driveway? Their
Yes,
own
their
driveway.
driveway.
Okay.
However, the neighbor is not that far from the driveway, so I think it was even pounding that activation line more. So
Okay.
immediately I knew that there was a ley line issue going down the
Mm,
driveway,
okay.
right? So again, for anybody that's listening, if you're not aware of what ley lines are, they're the activation lines underneath and throughout the planet and the globe itself that connect everything. They typically go north, south, east, west, and they make a grid pattern. And oftentimes these energies run, and if they are thwarted or impeded for any reason or broken, it will really cause a lot of electromagnetic interference and it can do all kinds of things. And this is something that contractors don't understand, people that are doing construction, et cetera, et cetera. And so this was really a jacked up ley line that was really causing an exacerbation of everything else, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
So it was super interesting because when I got into the work, I actually even recorded it for her because it was pretty crazy. Immediately, I felt, again, I know nothing about history, but it was like their island itself used to be part of the whole continent, the continent, right?
Oh, okay.
Over time, these islands break off, and I found this ley line was actually such a huge break from all the way from eons ago that it was destroyed when it became an island. Are you following
It
this so
was
far?
destroyed when it became an island, meaning,
The ley line got ripped off when the
oh,
island
like it's
went
cut
up.
off from the energy,
Yes,
from the flow of the energy. Is that what you mean?
yes, it
Okay.
was crazy. And so it was, I'm trying to see if I have this here. Okay. Pangea is
Hmm.
what we looked up later. So the Pangea was what the world looked like before it was all cut up, and we can put the overlay of how the world looks now on how the world used to be before it was cut up, and you can start to see, oh, this is where the rip was, and where it's almost like our arm got torn off, right? And we
Hmm.
don't have any blood flow to this communication throughout this arms, okay? And so it was so interesting because this was a huge piece of it, that the actual flow to the rest of the continent was taken away. So the ley line was compromised. So the communications of the ocean, where they're floating in, was also compromised. Everything got cut off. It was really crazy. And it was really sad because there's whales in this ocean and
Mm.
the whales couldn't communicate and they couldn't have, and I knew nothing about their whale situation, which I'll say in a second, but they didn't be able to communicate what they needed to communicate in terms of putting their information through the ley lines of this whole entire world that's reactivating. So it was reactivating long broken energy bridges between the places and restoring lost connections. But then it got even crazier because it went into things that were really ancient, and I'll get into that in a second when this next client steps into play here. It was the first time I've done back-to-back clients that were the same project. I've never done that before.
What?
And it was so weird because this particular client was booked the day before, and at the last minute, she booked the Thursday that was open because somebody else had rescheduled. And when she booked Thursday, she's here, and then my next client was here. and they finished the work of each other. It was insane. I've never had that happen before. It was so incredibly bizarre. So, I had the job of putting back the land in an etheric, energetic way, put the land back together so that the artery of sorts could start to talk again through the ley line, and that the whales eventually could get the information back. I'm just going to jump ahead for a second. The next client, right after her, with an hour break in between, unbeknownst to me, I've only worked on her once before, and she did nothing like this work the first time. This girl saw me a year ago. She had no clue of what was happening in the world of energy. She was completely like just learning. And in 1 year, she completely has changed her body. She's dropped 50 pounds. She's completely aligning to her higher self. She's meditating. She's dumped all of the negative energies around her, and she's just getting completely powerful. Therefore, all of a sudden, she was a completely different person to work on. And she went out of body and she showed me so many things that were crazy that came into play. And I get done with this girl and I look at her and I go, you were in Nova Scotia on the table. You're supposed to live in Nova Scotia. And she looks at me and she burst out crying. She's like, "Are you seriously kidding me? That's so weird." And she's trying to wipe her eyes and I'm like, "What's going on?" And she goes, "I've been looking for houses in Nova Scotia all month." I'm like, "Have you ever been there before?" And she's like, "No, but I know I'm supposed to go there." Well, so she's got this side of the continent and the other one's got this side of the continent.
So on
And
each end of Canada.
yeah, and when we put that Pangea together and all the continents go, it my job was to triangulate these two with the UK. And the UK
Um,
is coming online so strong right now for the Merlin, which of course is all the Druid stuff, right?
yep.
And the other one was Druid too. So I've got three Druids in 2 hours. And it's this weird outline like this of the ley lines. But then when we had the Pangea, it almost all aligned in the days of way back when. They
Mhm.
all communicated together as a ley line. And they had been all ripped and torn apart. It was the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So my job was to open up the artery so that everything could move through, but more so, it was to open it up so that the whales could move through. And what was really amazing was half of it was Atlantean and half of it was Lemurian.
Ooh, see, that makes a lot of sense because I've always felt like Lemurian is on the Pacific and Atlantean is on the Atlantic side, right?
Isn't that
Like that.
crazy?
Oh my gosh, that is so wild.
It was so cool. And so um, it was like when you generated the visual overlay, and of course I ran on Chat GPT for just for shits and giggles on this, to generate an overlay of the current continents of the Pangea, shows you how the three regions map out. And I'm going to kind of read it from here because it's just a lot. Exploring what ancient Earth energies, for example, crystalline beds, volcanic lines, primordial oceans, may still influence the lands today, and that the soul lineage has traveled across shifting continents. And so I was looking at all of these like grids and stuff. It was crazy. And then we pulled in Scotland eventually. And the Scotland was, of course, part of it too from the UK side of things. So it was Nova Scotia, British Columbia, and Scotland were the three. And the tectonic lineages all match up when you're looking at the ancient Pangea. It was crazy. So I'm going to read this. This could help explain why BC often feels like a separate energetic stream, holding deep-hearted, centered Lemurian codes, while Nova Scotia and Scotland carry Atlantean structure and wisdom codes. If your soul feels drawn to all three, you may be bridging the original Earth polarity of Atlantis and Lemuria, not just in grid terms, but in actual geological lineage of the continents. I mean, it always takes it a 5 steps further, thinks that chat thinks it knows what it's talking
Well,
about, but I was
yeah.
already doing it. I mean, that's what I did in the session. I actually connected the lineage lines and the ley lines. So for it to say that cracks me up because God knows where it gets its information. So yeah, it is all. So Scotland and Nova Scotia are sharing the Atlantean memory code. Okay. Anciently connected by land masses. British Columbia is the Lemurian aligned Pacific Rim, energetically different now, origin, but part of the same continental plate. So it's really bizarre that two different complete clients were opening up a whole gateway of activity and activation within the whole chunk of the globe, having to do with probably the most famous ancient screwed up time on our planet, right?
Right. All the yeah, right. So, but go, I think I got confused here for a second. So Lemuria, you said is part of the British Columbia,
No,
Canada.
those are the three chunks. Oh, yeah. No, British
Yeah, like
Columbia was Lemurian, aligned with
Lemurian.
Pacific
Okay.
Rim. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
That
Yep.
that makes sense. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
just heard it
So
wrong.
BC holds the energy pattern from the Pacific side of the Pangea and near the ancient Asia and the Pacific microcontinents, aligning it with more with the Lemurian consciousness.
Yeah, because
So,
I've always felt like going to Hawaii that that's very Lemurian in that area also. Like that Pacific side,
right.
maybe those
As is, and I
islands.
think British Columbia has a lot of that as well. And now we're going up to let's do the
Well, the
other one.
islands had to come from somewhere. Like, yeah.
And then Scotland and Nova Scotia during the Pangea area, which is about 3 million years ago, by the way. God knows our country has changed, right? What is now Europe, including Scotland, and northeastern North America, including Nova Scotia, were directly adjacent as part of the northern landmass called Laurasia, specifically near the Caledonian mountain range, which was once a single geological structure. So remember,
Mhm.
everything that we're looking at is all separate in the Pangea came down and it was all in alignment. So, for whatever reason, the ancient earth needed to remember the alignment. So, just because it's not there doesn't mean that I can't put it there energetically for it to open up and communicate the old ancient files. That's what I do. Because I'm actually not doing it in the earth, I'm doing it in the earth's instruction set,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, yeah, so it says chat thought Scotland and Nova Scotia may have shared the same tectonic an energetic backbone, quite literally the same mountains and fault lines, and this could explain why energy sensitives like me can find that strong transatlantic resonance between the two. They are anciently the same energetic landform.
Hmm. Which,
So,
so Iceland sits out in the middle between Nova Scotia and Scotland, Ireland, that area.
I
And
haven't got
it's
that far.
exactly when they talk about the continent splitting, it's the middle of, like, we stood on the line where the continents used to be joined.
And did you feel anything? Do you recall? Did you feel pain,
Um,
sadness?
I didn't feel, no, I did not feel sadness.
Okay.
I felt energy, but it
Okay.
was let me remember this because what I saw where we were standing is at one of the major kind of waterfall areas.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the rocks and there were faces of ancient um I felt like they were guardians, a lot of them,
Yep.
in the
Yep.
rock. Like the rocks were just full of faces to me. Like
So
I
what that
imagine
is that's your inner earth elemental connection. So when we rip these things apart and these land masses rip apart, that would be like half of your family just got taken,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
it's that part
Or
of it, looking at that, I felt like there was like they were almost frozen in time. You know,
yeah.
like it was really strange. Because it didn't have emotion for me. It was like it was just this happened and they're like frozen in time.
And a lot of times when that stasis happens, what is happening to us is our connection to the actual earth in terms of mother energy, nurturant, compassion, all of that stuff is taken away because that elemental kingdom in between us going into inner earth as well is our literal mineral connection for our minerals, our blood, our iron, our core to connect with that maternal energy. So this is why places like, war-torn places like Iran and Iraq borders have no emotion. They can't even feel what they're doing because all the elemental information has been torn from the planet. This is part of the nefarious agenda, by the way, because places like Iran and Iraq have massive portals. And if the negative energies can keep, and the programming can keep them warring, keep them warring, keep them warring, it keeps out that elemental connection,
Right.
like the mosses and the trees and the elementals faces and the stuff that you're talking about. This is part of how we connect. And if that's all ripped and torn or shredded apart because of war or ripped because of the landmass, these are disconnects for us. And then we can't get our emotional connection and have anything like consciousness, like, oh my God, we're killing each other, right?
Well, and all the water
Yeah.
that doesn't have that either, especially if the whales aren't able to communicate and
Well, and the whales
transfer
were just,
information.
I think, one of the most amazing things. And I'm going to end with that, but I want to jump back. So then I was into back on the one on the BC side. It was interesting because I wanted to know what was going on and why the neighbor thing was bothering her so much. And it was a trigger for her of the neighbor because there is like a piece of her in another lifetime that is very, very aware of conflict and trauma. Hence, go figure, she's a therapist, right? And I got that that spot on the actual island had had native conflict.
Mhm.
And I don't think of her like all the time from the UK. I mean, I do, but I don't. And ironically, I said it felt like there was native conflict and not like American Indian native, just native. I don't know what that meant, but native conflict in that area. And it was fighting with with it was is really, really old, and it was fighting with like people that were British, like they were over in that part fighting with these natives. And so now my Brit friend comes and moves on the place and triggers that holographic, okay? And not that her neighbor is native, but I mean it was that same plot of land, so she resonates with that holographic memory. And she came here to be a steward of the land. She was really called to this island, and of course it always happens as it should. You just end up there, hook or by crook, you're there. And she was really called as her druid energies to really not only help the ley line, which is the work that I did, but to also resolve the conflict.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's two whole projects going on at once, if you're following.
Mhm.
And this conflict was really difficult for her because it triggers her as a human in this lifetime, and it triggers her work, and it triggers everything and her purpose. And so we stabilized the neighbor with a lot of what we would call energetic pillars or walls. Where we are going to go through a process of I'm forgiving the conflict of that timeline in a different scenario, but it will affect me. So that's what I did. A lot of forgiveness, a lot of release, a lot of allowing, a lot of just changing the actual energetic template of what it looked like. It was so crazy. And when I'm telling her all this at the end, she starts laughing and she goes, "What's really even more bizarre, Suzanne, is the owner that was owned this home and before us was also from the UK. He was also
Oh,
Brit."
really?
She
Oh
goes,
my
he's
God.
also a Brit. And I'm like, see, they were pulling you Brit people there to make this happen. And that other person couldn't handle it and just left. But these two nailed it. So it was really funny. So it was supposed to be nourishing what was happening there. It was very, very interesting. So the whales became a really big part of this. And so I heard two things extensively when I was working. And one of them was whales, and one of them was a well. And I'm trying to
Hmm.
see if I can remember. So I obviously know what a whale is, but the well thing was very interesting. And I oftentimes come up to the halls of Amente, okay? And let me see if I can get that. So the halls of Amente are basically oftentimes referred to as the Akashic records. So I think what I was doing was going back and getting the Akashic in a line, which is a lot of work that I do anyway.
Mhm.
So the Akashic records of the struggle and the conflict are being resolved, and the Akashic of the ripping off of the continent and how the country changed itself was
Yeah.
being resolved. So it's so weird to hear the word well and Amente, and then I go back and I figure all that out. Okay, that's interesting. And then ultimately, I'm telling her about the whales, and she said, "Oh, that's just so sad because we love the whales. Everybody loves the whales out here." And she said, "And they've been in an endangered state for quite some time." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, you're kidding." And she said, "No, it's really sad. And there's like, all these groups that are doing, much as they can to help it. And it's been coming back a little, but we don't hear them as much as we'd love to, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Well, of course you can't hear them because it's like, I mean, they can't speak, they can't get their information out. They're sad, they're dying, and they come right in front of their home and they can see them when they're on their ferries going back and forth and things. I mean, how incredible would that be?" But yeah, they've been endangered for quite a few years. I don't know how many she said, but anyhow, a couple days later, she reaches out to me and and said something else, and then I shot back, "How you guys feeling? How's the house feeling?" And she's like, "The office is still balancing. It's just a titch dizzy still." She said, "But I'm doing much better with the neighbors." She said, "I'm actually calling them by their name." Which is so her. She said, "I'm doing much better with the energy of that. It's not affecting me as much." She said, "The house feels great. The land feels great. Everything feels great, blah, blah, blah." And then she writes back, and oh, by the way, and she sent me a live feed of the actual whales. They have a project that keeps the live feed of the land. And
Yeah.
all the whales have been going crazy the last couple days. And she
Oh,
had
that's so
all these
great.
whales, all these whales, all these whales. And I'm like, oh my God, because they're like, oh my God. It's like finally I can call home.
Oh, that's
Isn't
so
that just
fantastic.
crazy?
Yeah, it is.
I think it's so
Amazing.
interesting.
Yeah.
And of course, Nova Scotia, we all know for those people that are TV buffs, we all know that that's, Oak Island.
Mhm.
And I think that's really interesting too, because me of all people don't watch that show, The Curse of Oak Island. And I did some significant work on that some years back. And maybe we opened something at that time that also helped from that end. I don't know.
Right.
But it was crazy. Oh, and lastly, one last weird twist again. The second client who I told her she needs to go to Nova Scotia, again, that hit her so hard. And I said, and then your next trip has to be Scotland. And she just busted out laughing and she goes, I'm already going to Scotland. And I'm like, of course.
Of course you are.
So, I mean, these are all weird things. And again, take these or leave them. It doesn't really teach you much of anything, but I think what it maybe does is it opens up the awe and the wonder of not only our reality here, but more so our continent and our planet. That
Right.
our continent and our planet does know what it's doing and that it will align people to assist it when needed, the kind of people that can assist it. I mean, not everybody, puts ley lines and land masses back together in a blueprint that we can't even see, but it's important. And whether you believe it or not, it is important. It will feed the earth. It will communicate. It will put the records where they belong. It will do all kinds of things that are really helpful in places and spaces that we don't necessarily see. So
Mhm.
you don't need to understand this work. And if you think it's all crazy and it's just for entertainment, so be it. But the people that do this holographic work understand that this is bringing the actual planetary system back online. And it's what that offers us is our body gets more nourishment, our body gets more safe, our body gets more sovereignty and freedom and the ability to co-create and feel good on this planet instead of being controlled in a patriarchal society of crap. So above that, what's happening is the alignment of the astrological constellations and portals are also activating. So
Mhm.
what this means, whether you want to believe it or not, is there will be contact on this planet very soon. I don't mean tomorrow, but I mean within the next years where we will have back to where it was. We're resetting the entire process by doing this kind of work. So it's pretty awesome and amazing.
It is so fantastic. I love the connection and how the clients lined up
Yeah.
and then the clients lined up. Like,
So cool. So
so
cool.
what did that feel like for like the Nova Scotia side? You kind of described what it felt like for the British Columbia side, but could they feel a difference in their own like energy when this was happening? Like,
Well, the gal in my office does not live in Nova Scotia. She just has the need to move there. She's now currently still where she lives elsewhere, but I was more tapping into Nova Scotia itself. And like I said, I do believe
Mhm.
I probably did some prelim work on that portal itself when I did the Oak Island work, because that felt like it was just waiting for the pipe to go into this thing. This is the work I did more opening, 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 and it felt like the Nova Scotia landmass was okay, but the connection didn't have anything to go in. So
Okay.
I was more like I found the pipe and screwed it into the rivet.
Do you think they're going to find the treasures
I
in
was just gonna say, I wonder if that'll do anything to that
Oak
silly
Island?
show. We'll have
My
to see.
dad would be so excited.
Yeah, but who wants to find the treasure? Because then they don't have a show to, milk you alive for the next 6 years. But
Right, right. No, that's just
yeah, super
amazing.
interesting. And when I did Oak Island, I'm not under an NDA anymore, so I don't care. I saw the British all over that island, all over it. I saw the redcoats.
That's
I saw,
Canada. Canada, this is like
yeah,
it's
I mean,
Europe.
they're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
yeah. And so it's not a surprise that it is the whole, bringing British back home again kind of a split thing too, because they had literally the redcoats and the white pants and the whole 9 yards.
And
So
there are horrific stories about the battles to take over that land
yeah,
with the natives and
sad,
whatever
sad,
they were
sad.
considered. Yeah. And I'm not an expert in it by all means, but I know that just I think there's anniversaries that they acknowledge like just decimated areas of
See, and
people.
I don't know any of that because I'm like, I don't do history and geography and all of that. I just
No.
don't. It's not
I
my
hear it and I
thing.
don't remember all the details, but I know
Yep.
it was really bad.
But that's nice validation too, that there literally was natives in that BC area because it was really strong on that island. And again, what I release is sadness. I release grief, I release all of that stuff. So what we put into the Akash, for people that don't quite understand this, the reason why it's important for us to put back the grief and the sadness and the fear and the pain and the killing and the horribleness of it all of humanity back into the Akashic is because the Akashic is basically the God source of record keeping that the beings that are going to come into an incarnation go through, and they read that information of sorts, and they decide what to do on planet because of what they read in that information. And so this is a new form of working the Akash in the last years of actual empaths on this planet
Mhm.
feeling the pain and putting it back into the library. This is not what we did even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we died with our pain. We came back karmically. But karma has already placed people on this planet that are starseeds, that are workers, that are druids, that are fairies, because they're the ones that are working these elemental mishaps and putting the instruction sets right. And we know how to put it back to the Akashic so that the evolution of this planet moves forward in terms of love and light, not stagnates in karmic loops of
Right.
stupidity for that we did for years and years.
Right. Right. And through that process, they're not only healing for themselves, they're healing for their lineage that
Yes.
it goes back and back and back and back, which is releasing those essences from all of the trauma or all
It's
the
beautiful work, and that's actually what the second client did. The second client
Mhm.
was doing more lineage release in her session as well, because she is part of the Scotland, I believe, lineage. And so when I was working with her, we were letting go of those lines. So yeah, every time we release it, it is gifted to
Mhm.
our biological line and lineage line and soul line. And so these are really important work. You know, it's not something you're going to learn on TV, or you're not going to hear it on World News Tonight by any means, but it is happening at warp speed by many, many, many light workers. And I think it's super exciting because that's why I don't give two hoots. I don't give two hoots about the news. I don't care. I don't care about the news because everyone's freaking out. And I'm like, yeah, but what you don't understand is gateways are opening, the actual Earth is
Yeah.
traversing, the portals are opening, they're aligning vortexes. You just don't see that side of it. So stop worrying, you know? So because
Yeah.
they go hand in hand, right?
Well, and the light is becoming more prevalent, and the higher frequencies are becoming more prevalent, and the angelic realm is here more for us. And so it's all
And
there's good
people are
stuff.
waking up in mass
Yeah.
amounts, and it's really fun to watch. I mean, I have never had as many new clients as I've had this year that are coming in and kind of scratching their head, going, "Well, the weirdest thing happens when it's like, yep, yep,
We
yep,
should have recorded my son a little bit ago as
yep."
he's sharing his experiences.
I know.
Cool.
And it's fun to watch our family members wake up. I think that
Yeah,
that's beautiful that he has used as a support system.
absolutely. Yeah,
So,
explains so much about him as a child. I just can't even.
yeah.
It's so amazing. I love
Yeah.
it.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, well, and again, take what resonates, toss what doesn't. Just maybe use it for entertainment if it doesn't really make sense to you, which is okay too. So, on behalf of Kim and I, please hit share button. We would like to get these messages out to more people, and I think there's a lot of people that can use this kind of information. This doesn't have to be just about energy
Mhm.
sessions and things. This is life. This is real life. So please hit the share button. The subscribe button really helps us out, puts our numbers up, and makes us be able to get to more people. So until next time, then cosmic hugs.
Goodbye.